You are listening to a podcast called Torah With Simcha. Sunday, May 4th, 2025. It's very interesting. There's a book that we have. It's called A Shul Without a Clock. Has anybody seen that book? I haven't seen it, but I know Mommy spent years reading that book. I don't know how many. So how many times have you read the book Shul Without a Clock?
A lot.
Okay, a lot. I don't know what the book is about, but I know what the title is about. And this house was the house without a clock. Friday night. There was clocks over there, but no one's looking over there. When it comes to Shabbos, there really is no such thing as time in a certain way. Because Friday night is Friday night. This is the routine. You come home from shul, we have the Suda. Sometimes the Suda is at 5 o'clock p.m. or 6 o'clock p.m. in the winter time. And then sometimes it's at 9 o'clock p.m. But we're not really paying attention to what time it is. We're just doing what we're supposed to be doing. And that's why this story happened. So that's an important thing to know. No one would ever let their daughter go out at 11 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night by themselves on a Friday night. But that's an important point over here. That there's no clock and it's Friday night. And after the Suda, you're going to go out and take a walk. Oh, the Suda started at midnight. But that's an important point, that people are not paying attention to the time. The way it works here in Chicago is that it's no longer safe for anybody to be walking by themselves, regardless of gender or age. Especially since October 7th, there's shootings and it's no longer safe for anybody to be walking at night. But Friday night is actually the safest time. Why? Because Friday night, there's security all over the place. I always thought there's a security guy over there, and it's tremendous. We have a security guard over there, and then we have there's another police car over there. Right, and then we have so Friday night is actually the safest time, and there could be a machlokas about it because during the week everyone has a cell phone, except if you're 8 years old, then you don't get a cell phone for whatever reason. But everyone else has the ability to call 911. Even if you're muscular and big, you could still call 911. But an 8-year-old, he can't call 911, whatever. But everybody else can call 911. Fine. But Friday night, since nobody can call 911, that's why the security is so good. I think. That's why, what are we going to do? We have to have security. Plus there's people walking Friday night. So when you think about it, so it makes sense if there's going to be a night where you're going to let someone walk by themselves. So let it be Friday night. That's when people are walking. The rest of the time, people are not walking.
First of all, there's Jews everywhere. Second of all, there is securities.
Right. So there's cultural awareness over here. The culture is nobody has a cell phone on them Friday night. Therefore, there's security everywhere. And that is therefore the safest time to be walking by yourself. That's number one. Number two is that Devorah was going to be taking a walk with a friend who she told me has pepper spray on her. Okay, now I believe pepper spray will make the person go away. You just spray the pepper spray and the guy would just go away because no one can handle pepper spray. So, okay, fine. And the third thing is that Mommy, who never lets Devorah go out at night, ever, is letting her go out Friday night. So I figured there must be, I guess this was thought through, and fine. I am laying down on the couch by the front door, and Devorah is on her way out. I ask her, where are you going? And she said she's going to meet a friend, Michal, or as she calls it, Michal, but most people say Michal. It's different whether you put the mi or the chal. So Okay, Michal. And she was going to meet her by the corner. Now, I thought they were just going to take a little walk, maybe around the block. Mommy thought, I think they were going to take a walk around the block. Okay, fine. Now, all of a sudden, I would say, I was sleeping, and then all of a sudden I hear a knock on the door. And who do you think it is? Lo and behold, it's the one and only Malki Trachman. Like, what could be better than that? The only thing better is if it would have been Shayna Bela. But Malki Trachman knocks super late at night. This is like, who in the world knocks on doors 11 o'clock p.m. at night? But there was someone at our door knocking it. Okay, fine. So I opened the door. I don't even think I opened. I don't know. I was like half asleep. Dovi opened the door. Fine. Fine. I don't know who opened the door. But she said, it's Devorah here. And I said, no, Devorah is taking a walk with her friends. Okay, so now what? So there's a couple of things here. First of all, it's certainly a strange thing for Malki Trachman to be, but it's not strange if you, with the knowledge that she's part of that chevra, so it's not strange anymore. And that's the only way to explain it, because Devorah's out, so Malki Trachman's also up, just like Devorah's up. They're all up. Okay, so whatever's going on, Malki Trachman, there's a good chance she's in on it, whatever it is. Fine. So now we skip an hour ahead. I go back to sleep because I never really was awake in the first place. I was like half asleep. When I finally wake up, I'm like, wait a second. Someone went to check the clock at 11:32 at this point. So we're getting very close to midnight. And I was like, this whole thing doesn't make any sense. Why is Malki Trachman knocking on her door? Where is Devorah? Where is she? What?
I feel like I remember.
Alright, so Mommy didn't know where Devorah was, and Mommy was very worried. I was worried and not worried at the same time. I was trying to figure out if Hashem wants me to be worried or not, and I couldn't figure it out. So I figured, because on one hand you could say, oh, happy Tachon, but no, that's, on the other hand, like it shows you don't care about someone. Like you should be worried. Okay, so I was trying to figure out, what does Hashem want from me? So, of course, really the right thing to do is probably you call 911 right away. Because if there's any type of sakana, you call 911 right away. The problem with that is that it's just a very scary thing to have to be machal. It doesn't feel right. And secondly, the police never did a thing for us in the past. So what are they going to do anyways? They're going to drive around and what are they going to do? So what am I going to do? So I have to do something. So the only thing I could think of is to go to Malki Trachman's house, because where else am I going to go? Who's going to open up their door at midnight or 12:15 in the morning? Now, the Trachmans, my excuse is, well, they knocked on my door late at night, so I can knock on their door late at night. Fine. Besides, Malki Trachman might genuinely know where Devorah is, so it makes perfect sense. Fine. So I go, I knock on their door, Mrs. Trachman opens it up, and she says she'll check if Devorah is at her house. Perhaps she's with her daughter Malki, and give her a second to check. So she goes upstairs, she checks, and she came back down, and she said, well, Devorah's not here, but you should know this happens with my kids all the time. They're out, and she said she's always very worried because she doesn't know why they're not back yet. And her husband says, don't worry about it, they'll come back. So she's told me, no, don't call the police, don't worry about it, she'll come back. Okay, fine. So, and then she closes the door. It's now 12:15, 12:30 at night. And the question is, so where do you go? So once again, what are the possibilities? If I want to put forth a hishtadlus to find Devorah, the only other place to go is Michal's house. Like, there's really, I don't know where to go, but the first thing I did is I came back into the house and I checked her room. Maybe she's been downstairs the whole time. She wasn't in her room. 12:30 at night, she was not in her room. I knocked on the door, I opened the door, Devorah was not in the room. I said Devorah many times. Nobody responded. She was not in her room. Okay, this is 12:30 at night. I walked to Michal Mishlati's house on Sherwin. Okay? I've been to this house 10, 20, 30 times. And it says Knaf. It says Knaf or whatever it said. I went to different houses. Each one had a different name. Some of them were in Braille. Some of them were Hebrew letters. One house didn't have any name, so I checked the mail, and it was not Mishlati. So I figured first of all, I can get arrested at this point because I'm just going from house to house. I looked as suspicious as can be. I had an orange coat, and it was just, I looked very suspicious. Who does this at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Who also checks the
Right. Who goes up to and looks in the mail, and right. So I figured I better just get out of here. And I had a thought to go to Rabbi Doug's house, and he would tell me what to do. Rabbi Doug told me he was up the whole night because of something, and I should have come to his house. Fine. Rabbi Doug probably would have called the police. But anyways, so I came home, and by the time I got home, so mommy was coming out of the house, and she said Devorah is home. So I said, so where was she? She said, well, she came up because she needed to get the circle. So I'm like, you mean she was downstairs the whole time? Mommy's like, yeah. Like, well, and she came up with the most interesting hairdo I've ever seen in my life. Actually, I've seen it before on her. Just the hair. She has a certain cheshbon as to why she does it, and I don't know what it is. Like, she'll never go to Kal Chasidim with it, but apparently, if you go like this at night, then at least it looks like this during the day. Like there's some cheshbon to it. Devorah's hairstyle at midnight or 1 a.m. Her hairstyle at 1 a.m. at Chatzos Halayla. When you say it, the Haggadah, Bachatzos Halayla, Bachatzos Halayla, the hairstyle. A lot of stuff happened at Chatzos Halayla. That we know. We know that from the Haggadah. Look at everything happens at Chatzos Halayla. It's just amazing, by the way. Nothing happens at 2:13. Everything happens at Chatzos. So, okay, Chatzos, because of daylight savings time, Chatzos is about 1 a.m., not midnight. So she came up at Chatzos Halayla to get her Circle magazine. This is the story. She was out with her friend. They went to maybe Montrose's house, and it was because it started raining. Nobody knew it was raining because at 9 o'clock it wasn't raining, and at midnight it wasn't raining. But in between it was raining. Okay, she came back to the house, and she was careful not to go through the front door because she didn't want to wake anybody up. So instead, she snuck in through the back, went into her room, and only came up to get the Circle magazine. Okay, so now, here's the following things that I'm thinking that we can learn from the story. First of all, there's an enormous amount of kindness and care in this story. The fact that I walked to Sherwin, that was an act of care. There was like a father caring for his daughter. That was a very special hishtadlus, which in a certain way, like Baruch Hashem, I had that opportunity. If I would have known that the world was home, I never would have done it. So then I wouldn't have had the opportunity to put forth all those steps, which were a mitzvah. You know, David Shamsi once told me, he said, we don't appreciate sometimes the amount of chesed that we do in our own house. So just because it's our own house doesn't mean it's not chesed. The other chesed over here is the Trachmans. The fact that Mrs. Trachman came out at 12:15 in the morning to open the door is a tremendous act of care. And it reminds me of a different story where there was no act of care, and I'm going to share that story. We'll go back to Ner Yisrael. It was a Motzei Shabbos, the Motzei Shabbos Slichos. Okay? And me and Tal from Canada, he's the 17th best tennis player in Edmonton, Canada, a ranked player. We went out Saturday night to play tennis by these beautiful lit courts by a swimming pool. and it was a very, very special thing to me because it was the very beginning of my journey in Ner Yisrael, the very beginning. And up until that point, I don't remember, but up until that point, I was in Skokie Yeshiva, and it was unheard of for people to play tennis. In the Midwest, tennis, in Chicago, tennis is really not a popular sport at all. Probably maybe because of the wind, I don't know. In St. Louis, it's popular, and on the East Coast, it's more popular. So, and one of the biggest rise to that is that all of the sleepaway camps in the Midwest, none of them have tennis courts. And if they do, they use it for volleyball. They don't use it for tennis. On the East Coast, all of the sleepaway camps have tons of tennis courts with lights, and it's just a whole different story. Okay, so in Ner Yisrael, which people will know it as being a more restrictive yeshiva because it's more black hat, but that doesn't mean it's any less fun. And in my case, I was able to play tennis there. So for me, it was great with a ranked player. So we walked to the courts late at night, and Slichos in Ner Yisrael actually is not said in the middle of the night because in yeshiva, in a lot of yeshivas, Slichos, because of Bittul Torah, they let the Bachrim have a full night's sleep, and they say Slichos Shachris before Shachris the next morning. So it's actually when you're learning Torah, so that's what ends up happening. So we played tennis, and on the way back, there were these two people we noticed that were following us, two gangsters. They were like, one of them had like a metal chain that came out of his pocket. They were in jeans with holes. They had backwards caps, and they looked like scary people. We didn't really get a good look at them because we didn't want to mamish like turn around to look at them, but we knew, like, we were glad there was a distance between us and them, and if there wouldn't be a distance, things would get pretty scary. But all of a sudden, as we're walking, we hear one of them yells. This is also, it's about midnight at this point, or 11 o'clock. It's midnight. One of them yells, "Let's get them!" And then they start running at full force. At that point, my friend Tal, he takes off running, screaming, "Help!" So I took off running. I don't think I screamed help, but I took off running, and we totally separated from each other. I didn't know my way back exactly because I was new, but all I know is I assumed we were under threat. It doesn't matter which house I'm at. Wherever I am, I'm going to bang on the door. It doesn't matter if it's midnight. So the first house I saw, I just went to the door and started knocking. And they didn't open up. I went to the next house. They didn't open up. Okay, so they didn't open up. Everyone left. I didn't know where those two guys were. I didn't know where my friend was. Just like, okay, I don't know where they went, but there's no danger anymore. The other time I banged on some stranger's house, it was in the middle of a tornado, and they did open up their door, and I was with a friend, and that was during the day though. This was late at night, so they didn't open up the door. So it turned out those two people were actually yeshiva bachrim that were playing a prank. Okay, they decided to play a prank the night of Slichos, and they asked Mechila that night, but I said it's just too quick to. It just happened. You can't ask Mechila now. Like, just give me a few days. Like, we were all like very shook up about it. So, and I would assume they were doing it for the friend. They had some type of relationship with him. They didn't really know me. I mean, they would never have done that to like a new yeshiva guy, a new guy. But that was the story back then. And you compare it to now, where it is a caring thing to open up your door for someone who's knocking on your door at midnight, because the person probably needs help. And so I'm pointing out all the acts of chesed that were done in the story. It's also a chesed for a parent to let their daughter, there's Mesiras Nefesh there, to evaluate the situation accurately and to realize there's security all over the place Friday nights. There's people walking around, and it's safe, provided you're not out till midnight or afterwards. It's safe, and is there a slight chance it's not safe? Sure. but just to let her go out was also not to make a blanket rule. You can never go out, but during the week you can't walk alone. But Friday night it's different. That's also a caring thing. The fact that I went out, that's a caring thing. But here's another thing that was a caring thing. The fact that Devorah decided not to walk from the front door, that was because of her caring heart. That was because of the love she had for the family. She didn't want to wake anybody up. And that's the most important part of the story over here, I think. That's where perhaps the strongest message is. Because a lot of times, a disaster, we can get caught up in our emotions in a disaster, and therefore vent or therefore lose sight of what actually happened. And a lot of times the biggest disasters are actually created with the kindest intentions. And we don't understand the context, and people could blow up. When we have no idea what the context was. So over here, had she not been the type of person who cares, we wouldn't have had a problem. If she didn't care, she would have just come in through the front door and we would have seen her. I mean, there would have been a little bit of an issue in the beginning, but we would have seen her. But because she's someone who cares about other people and she doesn't want to wake them up, so that's what extended the problem. Okay, so that's something to always keep in mind, not to jump to conclusions. And a lot of times, and this is very true by jail, the people who I've noticed that get put in jail are either the cruel criminals or the most caring people. They all start with a C. The caring, because there's two people at the crime scene, and there's one person who's not at the crime scene. The person who's not at the crime scene is the one who just doesn't care. They don't care who's at the crime scene, the one committing the crime, and the one who cares so much they're trying to stop the crime from happening, even though they know they're going to look suspicious. They're risking their life. The police are going to come. They might get put in jail themselves, and they do get put in jail. They eventually get released from jail. But I've worked with these people, and those people, they become leaders. A lot of the leaders have a history of being put in jail because they were caring people. They cared so much, they're willing to risk their life and risk everything to prevent the crime, or maybe to help their friend not commit the crime. But both of them get put in jail. So who causes the disasters? The kindest people and the other type of people. Meaning the prankster. Why would someone go through the back? A prankster or a caring person? Both, either way. So we don't know. But if the person didn't care, they're really, first of all, the person wouldn't have any friends in the first place. If a person wasn't a caring person, she wouldn't have had any friends in the first place. So the whole thing never would have happened. We owe a lot of Hakaras Tov to Hashem. The Baruch Hashem, Devorah is someone who has friends, and she goes out Friday night, and that she even had a friend to go to, and she didn't have to walk in the rain, and she even thought of, and in many cases she would have been correct. You could safely assume that everybody's sleeping Friday night, and we wouldn't have even known anything about it. It could be also that it was very late, and we wouldn't have even known about anything. Okay, so the story so far, it's a story where there's a lot of care. We learn to put things in perspective. People who are not familiar with the Orthodox Judaism culture could learn a little bit from that. The blessing is that we shouldn't lose sight. The details, which is really what I started off with, is that we should realize the chashuv role we all play. Not everyone's put into a position where they care for people in their professional life, where that's part of the mission. Like a construction worker, also he has to choose to care. he could do it out of caring. We find that all the time. Chanoch was a shoemaker and he walked Lifnei Hashem. But that takes extra effort. He can make the shoes without caring. You could also be a nurse without caring, but it's more conducive to care. Whereas construction, it might be more conducive. It might take you too long. If you're a window washer on the 103rd floor of the tower over there, Sears Tower, the Willis Tower. So if you're trying to care,
Or she tried to switch the light bulb.
the light bulb on top of the arch, or you. The guy at the Winston Towers who just goes like this, he doesn't care. He really doesn't care. He doesn't mind being mean. he could do it with a smile on his face. He's not opening up the door. We're waiting for him.
I thought you were the guy that's on the thingy, like going up to everything.
No. If he would be nice, he would never get the job done. Constantly opening up the doors for others, but he just doesn't care. He just goes like this. Everybody's waiting. He's not supposed to open up the door for anyone. The guy at the Winston Towers, he doesn't open it up for strangers. So that's it. He's afraid they have a gun. He's like, oh, hey, who in the world has a gun? They look like from people with kids. Like, what are the chances that some people do? I don't know. So, right, he was instructed not to open up the door. So, sometimes...
If he was instructed that he doesn't have to like smile at
Right. Right, you don't have to smile. Hi. Bye bye. Hi. Hi. Bye bye. So, if you were to think of the most ideal spiritual reflection for a hospice team, it would contain all of the following, and I think all of the following exists in the story that happened to us Friday night. So, number one, whenever you could increase cultural awareness, that's one of the things that we always try to do, because the patients, each one is from a different culture. There's very few people who are familiar with Orthodox Judaism. Very few people are familiar with Shabbos. Nobody's familiar with it, actually. Nobody. Even if you tell them the laws, they don't truly realize, like, it's so real. They could text me and email me all day long, and I literally don't care, because no matter what they do, I will never pick up the phone. So it doesn't matter. When people say, like, oh, out of respect for your Shabbos, I didn't email you. No. You want to email me? Email me on Shabbos. I'll never, ever pick it up. Ever. Okay, so that's the first thing. We're going to say a story which is going to increase people's cultural awareness. Okay. The second thing, and this is the most important part, I think, one of the reasons for the spiritual reflection, they say, is to ground people. It's to keep people grounded, which I think means help people focus on the important things. Because a lot of times it's very easy to get caught up in the details and forget about why we're here. And I know with myself, it's very easy to do that. For example, I was told once that someone named Brian had a concern about professionalism because he saw the other chaplain, the Korean chaplain, talking to me during a meeting. So he said, this is not professional. The next time I was at the nursing home, she started kicking me. I didn't know what she was doing because I was talking to someone, and she said I shouldn't be talking to them. So I said, listen, I don't really want to go into this building ever again. And I don't want to go to any of your buildings ever again. Okay, fine. Now, the interesting thing about it is that after I said it, strange things would always happen to me which kept me out of those buildings. So then I realized every single Jewish patient of mine is in her buildings. Hashem's saying this job is a special schus. And if you don't appreciate it, then I'm going to take it away from you. So this job, especially for other Yidden, that's a special schus. And maybe by making it that I never get there, or strange things always happen to me, one day I'll reflect on it and try to figure out, do a cheshbon nefesh, where did I go wrong? And I'll realize that to say that means I'm getting caught up in the details. I'm getting caught up in the fact someone kicked me, or the fact that people are talking about me behind my back. Maybe there's anti-Semitism, and maybe by going, things are just going to get worse. Maybe the professionalism is not the issue at all. Maybe there's just a genuine hatred for Jews. And why would I want to put myself in that situation, which will ultimately just maybe get me fired from my job? Because they could say whatever they want. They could say, oh, you're a chaplain, he's doing this and that. They can make up stories. So I figured, listen, just avoid the whole situation. But that shows that I'm getting caught up in details. By not getting caught up in the details, which is really the chaplain's job, is to try to make sure during the spiritual reflection, keep people grounded, meaning keep them realizing why we're here. Why we're here is to provide care for our patients. A chaplain provides spiritual care. And I got to see that last week in these buildings, specifically in these buildings, where I had the most beautiful encounters. One lady was a Holocaust survivor, and the other person who hasn't expressed an emotion or has been non-responsive for who knows how long started crying when I said Shema. So as much as we think the person's completely out of it, the person lost their ability to speak. They have Alzheimer's, they have no memory, they have nothing, and we think they're just a vegetable on the bed. But if they're just a vegetable, then it wouldn't make any sense that the patient would all of a sudden start crying during Shema and then stop crying, and then when we started singing Adon Olam, start crying again. The neshama is there, and the neshama knows what's going on. So these two encounters are encounters I wouldn't have had I actually decided to live with my fear and just stay out of all those buildings. Those are encounters that I wouldn't have had. And also, things continuously happened to keep me out of those buildings until I asked Hashem for Mechila, and I said I recognize this is a special schus, especially our buildings. Not only that, but it's specifically because those buildings are so special. That's why the Satan worked so hard to prevent the situation from happening. Because the Satan doesn't really care about the other buildings. Everything can go wonderful as far as the Satan's concerned. But the buildings where there's a Holocaust survivor and there's someone who needs to say Vidoy, 6 people that need to say Vidoy before they pass away because they're Jewish and they don't have anyone to say Vidoy with them, for that, the Satan will do whatever he can to prevent that from happening.
You've been listening to a podcast called Torah with Simcha.